The pounding on my garage door wasn't a knock. It was a declaration of war. Each thunderous boom shook the frame, the sound of pure, unfiltered entitlement trying to beat its way into my sanctuary. I set my coffee down, a deliberate, calm motion in the face of the storm, and walked toward the noise. I already knew who it was. Through the side window, the scene was exactly what I expected. Patricia Dalton, the self-appointed queen of Riverside Heights, her face a mottled shade of crimson, screaming words I couldn't quite make out but could easily imagine. And behind her, her shadow, Tyler, her 17-year-old son, arms crossed, wearing a smirk so smug I'd fantasize about wiping off his face for 3 solid weeks. "Open this door immediately, Morrison." Her voice was a shriek, sharp enough to pierce the insulated metal. "I know you're hiding stolen property in there. The police are on their way." I couldn't help the slow smile that spread across my face. The police are on their way. Oh, if only she knew. I reached for the one thing I'd kept hidden since moving in. The heavy, gold badge caught the morning light as I clipped it to my belt. Then I turned the knob on my front door, not the garage. The look on her face, the sheer, sputtering confusion of seeing me standing there, calm and collected in my own doorway, was a small, sweet victory. It was a first taste of payback, and it was delicious. But let me rewind. Let me tell you how a 1969 Ford Mustang and a teenager's tantrum brought the HOA president of Riverside Heights to her knees. 3 weeks earlier, I'd moved into this house with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in 20 years. Freshly promoted to chief of police of the city, I'd finally traded apartment living for my own slice of the American dream, a modest 3-bedroom with a 2-car garage. It wasn't the house that was a dream, though. It was what was inside that garage. My pride and joy. A 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429 in grabber blue, so bright it hurt to look at it in the sun. That car wasn't just metal and horsepower. It was 5 years of my life, spent side by side with my late father. We'd breathed life back into every bolt, polished every panel, our hands working in sync until it was perfect. It was the last project we finished before cancer stole him from the workshop. It was a rolling, roaring memory. I'd taken it out exactly 3 times since moving in. Each time, it drew appreciative nods and thumbs up from the neighbors. Well, from most of them. Patricia Dalton lived 4 houses down. Our first meeting was less a welcome to the neighborhood and more a royal decree. She'd thrust a 3-inch binder labeled HOA Guidelines and Expectations into my hands and informed me my moving truck had been parked 2 inches into the sidewalk for 17 minutes longer than the bylaws allowed. "We run a tight ship here in Riverside Heights," she'd said, her blonde helmet of hair immaculate in the sweltering heat. "I trust you'll be a compliant addition." I just smiled, taken the binder, and kept my profession to myself. I liked the anonymity. I didn't need my new neighbors looking at me like I was the long arm of the law. The trouble started with Tyler. I was in the garage, carefully detailing the chrome, when he materialized on my driveway, his designer sneakers squeaking on the concrete like a declaration of arrival. "Sick ride," he said, and before I could stop him, he dragged his fingers across the pristine fender. "It's a V8 for 29 Cobra Jet," I said, my voice even as I gently moved his hand away. And I just waxed that spot. His eyes lit up with a familiar, dangerous gleam. "The kind that says I want, therefore I deserve. You should let me take it for a spin," he announced. "I got my license last month. I'm like an excellent driver." I almost laughed. A month of experience behind the wheel of a 400 horsepower classic? Sorry, son. This car doesn't leave the garage unless I'm driving it. His face darkened instantly. "My dad pays a ton in HOA fees." A ton? That basically means we own part of this street. So technically, I'm part owner of everything on it. I had to just stare at him for a second, processing the audacity. That's not how any of this works. "We'll see," he muttered, storming off. 20 minutes later, his mother appeared at my door, having changed into what I can only describe as her tactical gear. Pressed white slacks, a blazer with a gaudy HOA pin, and heels that click-clack like gunfire on my porch. "Mr. Morrison," she began, bypassing any pretense of civility. "My son tells me you were quite rude to him." "If by rude, you mean I told him he couldn't drive my classic car, then yes." Her lips pursed so tight they nearly disappeared. "Tyler is a very responsible young man. When he shows an interest, it's only neighborly to accommodate him. We're a community here." "Ma'am, that's a vintage muscle car worth more than some people make in a year. I don't let anyone drive it." She gave a dismissive sniff. "Well, we'll have to see if that vehicle even complies with HOA regulations. I'll be reviewing the guidelines tonight." And so the war of attrition began. A notice arrived, claiming the Mustang was too loud, though she'd never been around when I started it. Another declared the color, a visual distraction to motorists. My personal favorite claimed it was a commercial vehicle due to its potential for racing. Each time, I patiently cited the actual bylaws, proving her claims were nonsense. Each time, I could feel her fury simmering through the paper. It escalated. Tyler returned with two of his friends, a wall of teenage bravado, while I was mowing the lawn. "Hey, Mr. Morrison," Tyler called, his voice dripping with fake friendliness. "Reconsider about the car? Just a quick ride." "The answer is still no, Tyler." One of his friends, a bulky kid in a football jersey, puffed out his chest. "Come on, man. Don't be a hard ass. What's it gonna hurt?" My voice dropped, the chief voice my officers knew so well slipping out. "This conversation is over. You boys need to head home. Now." They left, but Tyler shot me a look of pure, venomous promise. An hour later, the cavalry arrived, Patricia, with her husband Richard in tow. Richard, a tax attorney who looked like he'd rather begin a root canal, stood silently as his wife unleashed a tirade. "You threatened my son and his friends," she shrieked. "Richard is a lawyer. We could sue you for emotional distress." Richard winced but remained silent. "Ma'am, I asked him to leave my property. That's my right. We'll see what the HOA board has to say about this." She spun on her heel and marched off, a defeated general retreating to plan her next attack. The next board meeting was by all accounts epic. I didn't go, but my neighbor Janet gave me the play-by-play. She spent 40 minutes talking about the dangerous element you represent. Janet chuckled. She had a PowerPoint, Mark. A PowerPoint about street racing culture. She actually used the word hooligan. I stood up and said the only people bothering you were her and Tyler. She did not appreciate that. The harassment became more personal. Notes on my windshield. Garbage cans mysteriously tipped over. A call to the city, claiming my grass was half an inch too long. Then came the final Saturday, the day the dam broke. I was sipping my coffee when I heard voices in my driveway. Tyler and his crew were back, this time taking selfies with my car through the garage window. That was the last straw. I stepped outside. "Tyler, leave. Now." "It's just pictures, bro. For Instagram. My followers love sick rides. Get off my property. I won't ask again." His face flushed. "You know what? Screw you. That car should be mine anyway. You're too old to appreciate it." "Tyler," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Leave now or I will call the police." He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "My mom already did. She said you stole this car." She looked up the registration, "And it doesn't match your name." He was right. I'd been meaning to transfer the title from my father's name, but hadn't found the time. The paperwork felt like a final goodbye I wasn't ready for. "Yeah," Tyler sneered, emboldened. "She said the cops are going to impound it, and then maybe someone who deserves it can buy it at auction." That's when we heard the sirens. 3 patrol cars, lights painting the quiet street in flashes of red and blue. Patricia emerged from her house, phone held aloft like a trophy. "Officers! He's right there," she called out, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at me. "The thief is right there." The first car door opened, and Officer Martinez stepped out. His eyes met mine, and the confusion on his face was almost comical. "Chief Morrison?" "Morning, Martinez," I said, leaning against my doorframe. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Patricia's jaw unhinged. "CA, Chief? What do you mean, Chief?" Officer Davidson stepped up, struggling to keep a straight face. "Ma'am, this is Chief Morrison. He's our boss." The triumph on Patricia's face melted, replaced by a dawning, gut-wrenching horror. The color drained so fast, I thought she might faint. Tyler took several steps back, suddenly finding his phone the most fascinating object on the planet. Richard, who had just arrived, looked like he wanted the pavement to swallow him whole. But the car? Patricia stammered, a fish gasping for air. The registration. "The car belonged to my father," I explained, my voice calm and steady. "He passed away 6 months ago. I inherited it. The title just hasn't been transferred yet. Would you like to see the will and the death certificate?" I didn't, Martinez," I said, my tone shifting to official business. "I'd like you to take a full report." This woman knowingly called 911 to file a false report. She's also been engaged in a campaign of harassment for weeks because I wouldn't let her son drive my personal vehicle. "Yes, sir," Martinez said, pulling out his notebook with grim satisfaction. "Wait." Patricia cried, panic setting in. "It was a mistake. I didn't know. You stated you checked the registration and then claimed it was stolen." I said evenly, "That's not a mistake. Patricia, that's a deliberate false report." While Thompson activated his body camera, the rookie, Officer Patel, turned to Tyler. "Young man, were you involved in this?" Tyler, desperate to save face in front of his friends, made his final, fatal error. "Yeah, so what? He's been a dick since he moved in. Thinks he's better than us." "Tyler, shut up." Richard finally found his voice, but it was too late. "My mom runs this neighborhood." Tyler yelled, his voice cracking. "She could buy and sell you. When my dad hears about this, you'll be sorry. We'll sue the whole police department." The show was over. Patricia was cited for filing a false report and misuse of emergency services. Tyler was formally warned for trespassing and harassment. The entire spectacle, including Tyler's magnificent meltdown, was captured in high definition on multiple body cams. "This is ridiculous." Patricia shrieked as Martinez handed her the citation. "I'm on the HOA board. I keep this neighborhood safe." "Ma'am," I said, my voice quiet but carrying, "you weaponized the police because your son had a tantrum over a car you couldn't have. You wasted city resources and could have diverted my officers from a real emergency. That's the opposite of keeping people safe." Richard finally dragged his family away, his apologies lost and his wife sputtered threats about lawyers and lawsuits. Janet appeared at my elbow as the patrol cars pulled away. "Well, that was better than cable. I just want a quiet Saturday." I sighed, the adrenaline finally starting to ebb. "Oh, you're not done yet," she grinned. "Patricia called an emergency HOA meeting for tomorrow. My guess? She won't be president much longer." Janet was right. The body cam footage was requested through public records and anonymously posted online. It went viral. HOA Karen calls cops on police chief. Got millions of views. Tyler's buy and sell you rant became a meme. At the emergency meeting, Patricia's kingdom revolted. Neighbors I'd never spoken stood up and told their stories. Petty fines, arbitrary rules, years of tyranny. The vote to remove her was unanimous. As she stood to leave, humiliated and broken, she turned for one last bitter threat. "You'll all regret this." "No, Patricia," Janet said, standing tall. "You made this neighborhood your personal dictatorship. Now, we can finally make it a community." The fallout was swift. The Daltons put their house on the market the next week. In court, the judge was not amused by Patricia's concerned citizen act. "Mrs. Dalton," the judge said, peering over his glasses, "you checked the registration, found a discrepancy, and immediately dialed 911 with a fabricated story. That's not concern. That's malice." She was hit with a $1,000 fine, 50 hours of community service, and a stern warning about jail time for any future offenses. The woman who tried to have the police chief arrested for stealing his own car learned a very public, very expensive lesson. You should always know who you're dealing with before you start a war, especially when your enemy holds a badge.